Zhu Yuanzhang was born in 1328 in Zhangli, in present-day Fengyang, Anhui. His name at birth was Zhu Changba. It meant double eight, a simple reference to his birth date, a naming practice common among poor rural families at the time. When he was 17, the disasters came in sequence. Drought first, then locusts, then plague. Within 2 weeks, his father died, then his mother, then his elder brother. There was no money for coffins, no land for burial. He first begged the local landlord for a piece of land to bury them. He was turned away. A neighbor, unable to watch any longer, offered him a narrow strip of poor soil. He wrapped the bodies in scraps of cloth and buried them there. To survive, he entered Huangjie Monastery, not for religious devotion, but because it was the only place that might feed him. 50 days later, the monastery ran out of grain and dismissed the monks. They were told to fend for themselves. He took a broken bowl and went out to beg. For the next 3 years, he wandered along the Huai River basin and through southern Henan. He slept in ruined temples and cattle sheds. He begged from door to door. He saw villages emptied by famine. He saw corpses left unburied along the roads. He saw families fleeing with no destination. This was northern China in the late Yuan Dynasty. In 1348, he returned to the monastery. Many others never did. 3 years later, rebellion broke out. In 1351, the Red Turban Uprising spread across the region. War reached his hometown. Huangjie Monastery was destroyed in the fighting. He was 25 years old and once again without shelter. He had already lost everything. There was nothing left to protect. In 1352, a letter arrived from his childhood companion Tang He, now serving under the rebel leader Guo Zixing. It was an invitation to join. Before he could respond, the letter was exposed. Authorities moved to arrest him for contact with rebels. There was nowhere left for him to remain. The monastery was gone. His family was gone. Now the state itself was hunting him. He had no choice. He fled to Heizhou and entered Guo Zixing's camp. There he changed his name. He became Zhu Yuanzhang. Yuan was the name of the ruling dynasty. Zhang was a ceremonial jade blade. The name carried a clear intention, a blade to destroy the Yuan. In battle, he charged at the front and claimed none of the spoils. Everything was turned over to his superiors. He could read. He kept his temper. In a camp of illiterate and impulsive men, that made him different. Guo Zixing began to rely on him and arranged his marriage to his adopted daughter. She would later be known as Empress Ma. After Guo Zixing died, Zhu Yuanzhang assumed command of the army. He was no longer a follower. He was now responsible for survival, both his own and that of his men. Rebel leaders rose everywhere. Cities changed hands and were stripped bare. Zhu Yuanzhang chose a different approach. When his army captured a city, proclamations were issued first. Looting was forbidden. Order was enforced. While others rushed to declare themselves kings, he did not. He understood that survival required more than battlefield victories. A scholar named Zhu Sheng offered advice. Build high walls, store abundant grain, delay proclaiming kingship. He focused on farming and training troops. He waited while rival forces exhausted one another. He began to seek out educated men, scholars trained in the Confucian classics, men who understood how a state functioned. He sent envoys with gifts and repeated invitations. Some agreed to serve. Gradually, he set himself apart from the other rebel leaders. Where his army passed, fields were cultivated, shops remained open. For the first time, his rule suggested stability rather than plunder. Order followed him. Before he could rule China, he had to destroy those who already claimed it. In the south stood two rivals, Chen Yuliang, who had declared himself emperor, Zhang Shicheng, who ruled the richest lands of the Yangtze. In 1360, Chen Yuliang led his fleet down the Yangtze toward Yingshan. He came to destroy Zhu Yuanzhang. Zhu accepted a plan proposed by Lu Ji. A forged letter was sent in the name of one of Chen's former allies. It claimed he would defect. Chen believed it. He moved his fleet to the designated point and waited for the signal. No signal came. He had sailed into a trap. More than 20,000 soldiers were killed. Over 100 warships were lost. Chen fled in a small boat. In 1363, Chen returned with greater force. He assembled hundreds of massive warships and mobilized a vast army, said to number 600,000 troops. He laid siege to Hongdu. Inside were only 20,000 defenders, under the command of Zhu Yuanzhang's nephew. Chen bombarded the walls with artillery. Entire sections collapsed. The defenders rebuilt the walls under constant fire. They used timber to seal the breaches. They fought hand to hand at the openings. Waters accumulated faster than they could be removed. Hongdu did not fall. In the 7th month, Zhu Yuanzhang arrived with 200,000 naval troops and moved to relieve Hongdu. His fleet confronted Chen Yuliang on Lake Poyang. Chen's warships stretched across the lake. They formed a floating fortress. His largest warships dwarfed Zhu Yuanzhang's vessels. Zhu's ships were smaller. They could not prevail in direct assault. By the second evening, he changed tactics. He chose fire attack. Small boats were filled with explosives and set adrift toward Chen's fleet. The northeast wind carried them forward. The flames spread rapidly across the fleet. Hundreds of ships burned. The lake turned red with reflected flame. Chen attempted to break through the encirclement. During the escape, an arrow struck him. He died aboard his ship. His army disintegrated soon after. In 1364, Zhu Yuanzhang declared himself king of Wu. Then he turned east. Jiang Shizheng still held Suzhou. His territory was rich, but his ambition was gone. He remained inside his palace and left command to his brother. Zhu Yuanzhang captured the surrounding cities and cut off supply routes. Suzhou was soon encircled. The siege lasted 10 months. Food supplies ran out. The defenders ate whatever they could find. In 1367, the city fell. Jiang Shizheng was captured. He later took his own life. The south was secure. Now there was only the north. In October 1367, Zhu Yuanzhang ordered his armies north. 250,000 soldiers crossed the Huai River. The Yuan dynasty was already collapsing. Its generals were fighting one another. The Yuan emperor could no longer control his generals. Zhu's armies moved quickly. Shandan fell, then Hunan, resistance, weakened. On January 4, 1368, Zhu Yuanzhang ascended the throne in Nanjing. He named his dynasty Ming. He named his reign Hongwu. He was 40 years old. He had begun as a beggar. Now he ruled as emperor. That same year, Ming forces entered the Yuan capital, Dadu. The Yuan emperor fled north to Shangdu. The city was renamed Beiping. After 4 centuries, the north was reclaimed. Before the northern expedition, Zhu Yuanzhang issued a proclamation: expel the foreign rulers, restore China, rebuild order, bring relief to the people. It was no longer a promise. It was the beginning of a new dynasty. He had won the empire. Now he had to hold it together. What he now ruled was a country exhausted by 20 years of war. Fields lay abandoned. Villages were empty. Household records were in chaos. No one knew exactly who remained or what could still be taxed. He understood how this system worked. He had come from it. He began by securing absolute control at the center. For centuries, emperors had relied on a chief minister to manage the state. The position carried immense authority. It also carried risk. In 1380, Zhu Yuanzhang abolished the office of chief minister. From that moment on, all central administration reported directly to him. No one stood between ruler and state. Every decision passed through him. The burden was enormous. Official reports arrived in endless numbers. Records show that in one period of 8 days, he reviewed over 1,600 reports and made more than 3,000 decisions. Every decision required his direct approval. He accepted the burden. He did not trust anyone else to carry it. With the center secured, he turned to the provinces. He divided provincial authority among separate offices, each reporting directly to the central government. No single official could control an entire province. Having restructured power, he rebuilt the system that selected officials. He reinstated the imperial examination system. Officials were selected through examination, not family background. Scholars from humble families filled the academies and ministries. Their authority came from the emperor alone. With political control established, he turned to restoring the country itself. He restored agricultural production. Farmers were relocated to abandoned lands. The state provided seeds, oxen, and tools. Taxes were suspended for the first 3 years. Soldiers were ordered to cultivate fields to supply themselves. Over time, abandoned land returned to production. Grain output increased. Food shortages began to ease. The empire's economic base was restored. These policies restored the state and concentrated power in the emperor himself. In 1382, Zhu Yuanzhang established the Jin Yue. It was not part of the regular administration. It existed outside the normal structure of government. It answered only to the emperor. Its purpose was to enforce imperial control through surveillance, arrest, and interrogation. Its agents operated in secret. They watched officials. They reported what they heard. They detained suspects without review from any other office. No official was beyond its reach. An official could speak in his own home at night. By morning, the emperor could already know. Service under Hongwu became a life of uncertainty. Officials left for court each day without knowing if they would return. Fear became part of rule. Corruption was punished with extreme severity. By law, officials who took bribes exceeding 60 taels of silver were executed. Their skin was stripped, stuffed with straw, and displayed beside the magistrate's seat. In 1385, the Vice Minister of Revenue, Guo Huan, was exposed for corruption. The investigation spread across 12 provinces. Tens of thousands were executed. Many ordinary families lost everything. Earlier, in the blank seal case, officials had affixed seals to incomplete accounting documents. Hundreds were executed, but his most ruthless killings were not against corrupt officials. They were against his own generals. In the Hu Weiyong case, more than 30,000 people were executed. 10 years later, he reopened the case and killed more. In the Lan Yu case, 15,000 more were killed. The founding generals disappeared one by one. Li Shancheng, Fu Yudfeng Sheng. Almost none of the founding generals were spared. The men who had fought beside him were gone. Why did he do this? He did this because he feared what might follow his death. He knew power too well. He had risen from nothing. He could control these men while he lived. But after his death, could his heir control them? His son, Zhu Bao, was gentle. These generals were not. So he removed the threat himself. He once said, "The Yuan lost the empire because they were too soft. To hold it, I could not afford mercy." This was his logic. Ruthlessness was the price of survival. After 30 years, the country recovered. The population grew. The land was cultivated. He left behind an empire that ran smoothly and feared itself. In 1392, Zhu Yuanzhang's heir, Zhu Bao, died of illness at the age of 37. Zhu Yuanzhang had raised him as the successor since his youth. He had guided him personally for more than 20 years. Zhu Bao was known for his kindness and generosity of character. Zhu Yuanzhang believed this was necessary. He would use severity to secure the throne, so his son could govern through benevolence. With Zhu Biao's death, the succession he had spent decades securing was shattered. His death struck Zhu Yuanzhang deeply. For months he withdrew from court, unable to resume the routines of rule. But succession could not remain uncertain. He named Zhu Biao's second son, Zhu Yuanwen, as successor. Zhu Yuanzhang knew that powerful generals still remained, men beyond the authority of a young successor. A young ruler could not restrain them. He ordered the execution of the remaining founding generals, removing the last military figures who could threaten the succession. He was securing the throne for a successor who could not yet secure it himself. In 1398, Zhu Yuanzhang died in Nanjing at the age of 71. In his final edict, he ordered that his funeral must not burden the people or disrupt their lives. He ordered that his sons, who governed regional domains, were not required to return to the capital. He was buried at Ming beside Empress Ma, his lifelong consort. He had risen from poverty to the throne. He left behind a restored empire. He also left behind a system sustained by fear. After Zhu Yuanzhang's death, the debate about him did not end. It has continued ever since. Some regarded him as the ruler who took the realm back from foreign rule and restored it to native hands. He had ended Yuan's rule and rebuilt a Chinese dynasty. Lands abandoned during the wars were cultivated again. Displaced people returned to farms and villages. Corruption was harshly punished. The examination system, the military garrison system, and the tax structure he built endured for generations. Others remembered him for the severe purges. A single written word could bring death. He created the Jinyu way to place surveillance and punishment directly under imperial control. Officials lived knowing they were always watched. He turned on the very men who had helped him found the dynasty. By the end of his reign, almost none of the founding figures remained. He revived the practice of burial sacrifice, condemning dozens of women to die and follow him into the grave. Both views contain truth. Neither alone is sufficient. He had risen from the absolute bottom of the social order. He had seen famine, collapse, and lawlessness with his own eyes. He understood what disorder meant for ordinary people. He rebuilt the state from collapse and restored order. But his origins also left him deeply insecure about losing power. He did not trust what he could not control. He concentrated authority in himself and removed those he believed could threaten it. He abolished the office of chief minister, leaving supreme authority in the emperor alone. This structure endured for the rest of the dynasty. He firmly established the examination system as the primary path into official power, ensuring that talent and ability could serve the state regardless of birth. The institutions he created continued for centuries. He left behind a state that functioned efficiently, but lived under constant tension. Order was restored. Fear remained embedded in the system. In 1398, he was buried at Ming outside Nanjing. Before his tomb stand stone animals, stone officials, and stone guardians, arranged in silent formation. They remain there today. They mark the tomb of a man who rose from beggar to emperor. History has never reached a single verdict on him. Perhaps it never will.